Good afternoon. This is Corey Cohn with the City of Highland Park. I'm part of the Office of Business Development. Today I'm going to go over the Year in Review 2025 Placer.ai report. Just an agenda for today. First, we'll introduce the Office of Business Development. Then we're going to go over the overview of Placer.ai, city's usage of Placer.ai, the business district overview, which will be the bulk of the presentation today. And finally, we'll wrap up with, plan of action, which is requesting a customized report from the city for your business, property, or location, a point of interest that you're interested in. So before I get into the presentation about Placer, I just wanted to remind everyone on the call about the Office of Business Development staff. We're here as a resource to businesses. We can help you from finding a commercial location, providing assistance through, regulatory and permitting process, getting you connected with our planning department, with the city's zoning and learning the existing business mix, grants and incentives we administer, as well as connecting you to the various modalities to market your business, whether that be our Enjoy Highland Park platform or within our business districts. So Placer.ai is a really unique tool. It's a location analytics platform that allows stakeholders to view foot traffic and vehicle traffic at a glance. So essentially, it's a privacy-first model where the technology is proprietary. So I can't tell you exactly how Placer gets their numbers, but what I can tell you is they use something called panel visits to track millions of mobile devices and get an overview of those who opt into location services for their devices. So if you ever click on that button that says, would you like to share your location with this app? That's how Placer gets their data. So essentially use all of the data they collect from, your devices, and it uses a predictive model and points of interest or locations you decide to analyze different areas. What's so unique about Placer is it gives a third-party data set that can describe really the narrative behind what's happening in key areas within your business, your neighborhood, your business district, and even broader. And really where Placer is the most helpful is when you take the data that we give you today and you use it to create actual results for your business, property, or whatever you represent. So, if there's one thing I do want you to take away today is to request a customized report. We have time and capacity as a staff to really make sure that for your particular business, for your particular property, we can dive granularly and see kind of what are the trends that we're seeing from a year basis, from a quarterly basis, and give you those actionable results. And I'll give you some instructions later on how to request a customized report. So starting off today, we're going to go business district by business district. So we're going to start off with the central business district, or as many recall it, uptown, or right now downtown Highland Park. For better reference of these data sets, I'm comparing it to the previous year. So at a glance, there are a lot of visitors that visit downtown Highland Park. Now, the delineation between visits and visitors is important here. So visits means that one person could have visited multiple times. So as you can see, visit frequency is around 7 visits per. So these are people who come in every day. They could come in every day. They can come in once a year. So the visits is the total number of times a person, an entity, a mobile device entered Highland Park based on Placer's predictive model. Visitors are unique visitors. So it takes, your unique identifier in your device and it separates it. So if you come multiple times, it can tell based on that, identifier that's in your device. So that's why visitors is always different than visits. It's healthy to see that around 7 visits are coming to the central business district in a given 12 months. That's really good sign. That means, people find Highland Park a destination, but not just destination, repeat destination. Average dwell time, I don't like to dwell on, pun intended, because As you'll see in a later slide, median time really gives you a more clear representation of how long people are staying in the district. Visits year over year, where we saw a 2.5% increase from the previous year. So that's good to see. 2 years ago, about a 2.7% decrease. So generally, these numbers are remaining flat. But it's healthy to see that, compared to last year, we're seeing an increase in visits. From a visitor's trend, downtown Highland Park is a little bit of a seasonal area to shop, but it's not as seasonal as some other districts we'll get into later. In general, you'll see the most highly generated traffic between the months of May and October in a given year. You'll notice that on most of these slides, July and August, which are delineated as 7 and 8 as a number of months, are typically the highest traffic. It's good to note for the Central Business District, those are also where prime event seasons happen. So from a tourism perspective, you're getting additional feet on the street due to events happening within these business districts. Looking at just an overview of the audience, just so a business holder can kind of see from a demographic standpoint, who is the audience of downtown Highland Park. And so within a 15-minute drive, this kind of gives you a snapshot of who they are. So median household income about 131,000. Very highly educated. Over 75% of people have a bachelor's degree or higher, skewing quite young in comparison to some other districts, 38.7. And then, ethnicity and persons per household, you can see those metrics there. So, one thing I did want to note is, where are people going prior and after their visits to, downtown Highland Park? So I want to take, school, work, and home out of the equation, right? So as a result, you can get kind of a clearer picture of, beside those three identities, where are people coming from before or after they visit downtown Highland Park. And as you can see here, Target, which is, one of the city's, largest businesses by square footage and sales tax volume, that's a very common area. You'll see the Crossroads business district that has a lot of chains and as well as well as a lot of residential, and then some, neighboring communities as well, like Deerfield Square, Northbrook Court. So just looking at a synopsis, what do daily visits look like in Highland Park? The strongest days are typically Fridays and Saturdays. What's encouraging to see is, we've dedicated some more programming on Fridays in the recent year, and we're seeing those metrics, show itself here. Fridays are really ramping up from a visitation standpoint. And, that was the biggest difference of the days of the week from last year to this year. As you kind of look as a business owner, you have to say to yourself, wow, I'm surprised there are actually a lot of visits on Mondays. Mondays are almost as healthy as Tuesdays. Maybe it's a situation where you might consider opening on Monday if you're a business owner. Also, you can kind of see that generally from Monday to Thursday, the visitations remain flat. You get a little bit higher of a peak in Friday and Saturday, but generally, visits are quite healthy along the days of the week. As you can see, Sunday is pretty low in comparison to the other days, and that's because lots of businesses are closed. So it's a question of the chicken or the egg. If the businesses were open, would more people come? Or because not people come, that's why businesses close. So you always have to, make that decision. And some businesses do thrive on Sundays, maybe due to, less competition. So just a consideration as you kind of navigate business decisions. Again, I'm going to go back to this multiple times during the presentation. It's always good to look at, what is the ability for my business, my property to make actionable results from this data. And the best way to do that is to request a customized report. From hourly visits, Highland Park, and particularly downtown Highland Park, has healthy visits in the morning and lunch hour. As you can see, really healthy visitation from, 10 a.m. to, close to, 2 to 3 p.m. And then, there's a little bit of a plateau and then a slight rise, especially in 2025 toward night programming, which is something that, the city has done with their events is we're trying to make Highland Park a little bit more of a destination in the evening as well as the day. So it's good to see that, as though, it plateaus around, 3, 4 o'clock. There's a little bump, particularly in the year 2025, at 6 and 7 p.m. for dinner. It's always good to look, generally where are people in Highland Park going over the course of a year? And so this is called a favorite places diagram. So essentially it takes all the visitors or all the devices they have in Highland Park and sees where they go most frequently. And of course, they'll be in areas in Highland Park, but by no surprise, O'Hare is the most popular destination because if you're going to fly, it's the closest airport in proximity. Old Orchard, a very busy shopping center, Village Square, Northbrook, and then, in Highland Park, Crossroads, and some other neighboring communities. Visit duration. So, we talked about dwell time earlier. The median time here is really the time that you want to look at because it takes away the extremes of people who work here all day and people who just pop in for uh, picking up carry out, right? So what this does is it creates a much more accurate representation of how long on average does somebody stay, taking those outliers into the equation. And the median's around 53 minutes. So people are in downtown Highland Park for about an hour. This just gives you a general perspective of where people travel as they come to downtown Highland Park. So from a traffic standpoint, 41 is a huge driver as well as Deerfield Road. So as you're kind of thinking about, what businesses can I collaborate with that are in these areas that could kind of boost my marketing efforts, try to use this maybe as a gauge to see, these are opportunities that persist where I could build partnerships or areas I could target for marketing. So that's Central Business District. Now we're going to move on to the Ravinia Business District. Much different in character. The Ravinia Business District is a much smaller business district. And it is, more so a neighborhood and commercial district kind of conjoined. So looking at an overview here, the Ravinia Business District had over 520,000 visits in 2025. This is a slight decrease from some previous numbers. It was interesting to see with Ravinia particularly is the east side and the west side had different trajectories on their visits. So the east side overperformed compared to last year and the west side underperformed. In aggregation, it looks like it underperformed, but some of our businesses did quite well. There are less visitations, that are frequented in Ravinia. So that's something to put in consideration as it's a little bit more of a seasonal community, especially with the neighboring Ravinia Festival in the area. And although, maybe year over year we've seen declines, we did see really healthy growth last year and the year before. So, even with the decline of the immediate year, Ravinia's went over a huge trajectory of increase in visits over time, in particular if you're looking at the past 5, 6, 7 years. So it's in a very healthy place. From a visitor trend standpoint, Ravinia is even more seasonal than downtown Highland Park, and that's really important to put in consideration. So you kind of see here, October between, October and December, and then the first 4 months of the year, visits plateau around 30 to 40,000. But, visitations do peak in the summer months, particularly with Ravinia Festival, getting to close to 60,000, sometimes over 60,000. So, something to consider as you're kind of thinking about staffing considerations. Maybe we need to hire more staff for the summer because there's more visitations to this district. So something to consider as a Ravinia Business District owner or stakeholder. Back to the journeys, it's always important to look at where do people go and where do people go after. Before, in the Crossroads business district, people, came to the Crossroads business district, Ravinia Festival, McDonald's, those are common places. And after Ravinia Festival is by far the most popular. Interesting to see, of course, Ravinia Festival is a destination, and the Ravinia Business District is very close in proximity, and it makes it a convenient experience for people to go to that district before they, see a show at Ravinia Festival. From a daily visit standpoint, this is kind of what we're seeing in the business district level. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are your peak visitations. One of the most impactful city events has been Food Truck Thursdays, and that has boosted visitations dramatically. In the summer, for this district, so it's on par with weekend visitations. So it's really good to see that. Otherwise, Tuesday and Wednesday are steady, but Sunday and Monday, maybe those are less frequented days. Also good to note that Wednesday is usually a healthy day for visitations due to the farmers market being there as well. From an hourly visit standpoint, uh, less, one of the key differences between Ravinia and downtown Highland Park is when people visit. And in Ravinia, it's much more of a dinner crowd. And much more visitations, at night, whether that's to see a Ravinia Festival show, to attend Food Truck Thursdays, or because Ravinia Business District has a lot of downtown or dining options at night. So that drives a lot of foot traffic in that area. From a visitor duration standpoint, again, I want to looking at that median number rather than the average number, seeing about an hour. Again, for visitations, I think what's interesting to see is you have quite the difference in the scale. So most people are either there for, less than 30 minutes or over 150 minutes. So, people are there for, staffing, or people are there for as residents, or whatever it might be. And then people are there to get, quick meal or a quick meal appointment or whatever it might be. Moving on to the Crossroads Business District. So the Crossroads Business District is, a much more steady business district, because most of the businesses in that district are open all 7 days of the week. And they do see a steady traffic flow. So as you can see, from a seasonality standpoint, it's pretty consistent across the board. There's a little bit more in, maybe a July and an August, but it is not significant by any means. These are businesses that are frequented once a month or multiple times a week. So there's much more repeat visitations that are tied to a lot of these businesses. From an audience profile, just kind of interesting to see the median household income goes down a little bit from the central business district. And, I think that's just housing availability near the western side of Highland Park versus the eastern side of Highland Park. The median age is around the same as central business district. Generally the same metrics across the board. From a tenant overview standpoint, I thought this was really interesting to see, because Crossroads is classified as a shopping district in Placer. We can get a little bit more granular with the tenant looks. So I think what was really interesting to see here is, some businesses performed better than the previous year and some didn't. But it's interesting to look at the visit share. 17% of the visits in the Crossroads Business District were accounted for by Thornton's gas station. 13% were accounted by LA Fitness. 7% were accounted by Binny's. So these are interesting metrics to go off of. And this kind of shows you what are the drawing businesses to the district. And, as a business owner who's a neighbor to these places, how can I work in tandem with them, to get more visibility on my business? Again, more information regarding some businesses in the area. One thing I did want to show that's really a positive sign is looking at the Courtyard by Marriott number. This is a metric that is key for tourism, and seeing, how is Highland Park driving tourism to the community. And a 28% increase in visits is substantial and something, that's exciting to see. That Highland Park is a destination, Ravinia Festival's destination. And because of, that large percentage increase, that's an encouraging number to see. Some additional numbers. Again, the full report will be available for you after this reporting. I'm gonna go through these quickly. All right. As we kind of talked about for consistency of the seasons, same with the consistency of days of the week. I mean, this is flat. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the same, a little bit higher maybe on Friday and Saturday, and Sunday's a little bit lower, but generally visitations are pretty even in the Crossroads business district just due to the business mix that exists there. From an hourly visit standpoint, this is similar to the downtown Highland Park distribution, but it's slightly different because it's pretty healthy between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But it does drop precipitously after 6 p.m. These are some favorite destinations, very similar to downtown Highland Park. Most people are coming from, O'Hare or visit O'Hare or Old Orchard, Crossroads Business Districts. These are the common areas that visitors go. From a visit duration standpoint, this was interesting to see. So that's why the median, I believe, is a more accurate number. There are just a lot more places in Crossroads Business District that are quick visits, whether that's Thornton's or Shell gas station, or they're the things like Binny's. These businesses are very quick in visits, right? You're there for 30 minutes or less. And there are less businesses that are in between, particularly that, half an hour to hour and a half range. Briergate Business District. So Briergate, pretty steady year from year. What's interesting about Briergate is, although there was a decline in visitors, we did see an increase in visit frequency. So just something to note. I don't know if I have a rationale behind that, but just an interesting metric to see. Year over year, slight decrease, but comparing to 2 years ago, an increase, and comparing to 3 years ago, an increase. So I don't think these results are significant enough to have a worry. Generally, Briargate remains pretty flat in terms of its visitation patterns. A lot of service based businesses are there. Automotive repair, Jewel, which is an anchor tenant in Briargate. That has visitations all year round. People do grocery shopping all year round. So, similar to Crossroads, pretty flat across the board. This is kind of the look of what's the makeup of the households in Briargate. Also slightly skews a little bit higher household income. And you can see this is slightly older population. So compared to about 38 median age in downtown, this is about 43. So, maybe slightly older part of Highland Park, slightly by the metrics. Oh, also something to note on the slide, how persons per household. So I think a lot of the housing inventory on the west side has a lot of single family homes that are for many people. So that number is a little bit higher than compared to other parts of Highland Park. So interesting to know. Tenant overview, just good to see again. Jewel is the anchor tenant. 84% of visits came from Jewel. So, a lot of the visit share came from the grocery store. So any of these metrics are kind of skewed to that favor. but it's good to see that they've seen a 4% increase. Again, that visitor journey piece, very common traffic patterns from Target or Crossroads Business District or Whole Foods in Northbrook or Sunset Foods. So grocery stores primarily. Again, going back to my point, with Crossroads, steady visitation patterns across the board here. 7-day per week businesses like Jewel will do this. So it's really just like the visitation patterns of when people go grocery shopping. So, you might see a Sunday or a Monday be, slightly lower in other business districts because of Jewel being the anchor tenant. It skews the data as being pretty flatline because one of the most common days to grocery shop are Mondays and Sundays. Hourly visitations, pretty steady for when people are out about and shopping, right? So 10 to about 6 p.m. and then a tail off after 6 for visitations. Median time there, 20 minutes. So most people are completing their grocery shopping pretty quickly. And most visits are not of a long way. Garrity Square. So Garrity Square is just off of Briergate, small business district adjoining. So, looking here at a glance, there's been a bit of a decline in Garrity Square over the past year. One of the tenants in there, Guys and Company, recently left, and there's a vacant spot there. As a result, this does cause a bit of decline. From a visits frequency standpoint, and pretty, the same year to year. Again, similar to Garrity Square and Crossroads, not a ton of difference in seasonality for this business district. So, from January to December, it's generally the same. We talked about the audience overview. It's pretty similar to Briergate. So, the big driver in Garrity Square is going to be Starbucks. So they account for about 52% of the visits, and the gas station accounts for about 45% of the visits. So obviously you have to draw a lot of this data from those two tenants since they make up, almost 98% of the total makeup of these metrics. Here are the common places people come from on their visit journey. Jewel makes lots of sense given its proximity. Whole Foods also makes sense given its proximity to Deerfield as well. From a daily visit standpoint, because Starbucks and BP are the anchor tenants, pretty consistent across the board. Slight increase on Friday. Maybe people are treating themselves, neither do a full tank of gas or a cup of coffee on those days, but generally flat across the board. Visitations, really interesting to see that in 2024, they skew quite later than they have, in 2025. So that's just an interesting thing to kind of keep my eye on. But generally, high visitations in the morning, primarily due to, commuters looking to get a coffee fix before they go into work. And then, pretty consistent from, about 11 till 5 p.m. and then a tail off after that. Visit durations are going to be really short because, again, because of the gas station and Starbucks, most people are looking for quick, convenient visits. Median time is 5 minutes. This is the visitor journey. So slightly different than the central business district, but as you can see, Old Deerfield Road, 41, and then, because of your proximity really to the western suburbs like Deerfield or Riverwoods, you have a little bit more traffic coming that way. All right, North Skokie corridor. North Skokie corridor is kind of home to a lot of our dealerships, some of our anchor tenants like Target, Dinks, Pickle and Paddle, home to, some medical buildings as well. Uh, you know, pretty pretty interesting stats from North Skokie corridor here. Decreases year over year. So this is something to monitor as we're kind of looking to bring some, more business activity to that area. One thing is I will tell you a key closure there was a CVS pharmacy. Due to that closure, that can bring down some visits in the past few years. But generally, it's interesting to see that, around close to 5 visitations for a visitor. Probably a lot of those draw from Target. Visit trends. Again, due to the proximity to being at a highway, pretty consistent, although you see a little bit more traffic as, more people are in the area, particularly from the months of May till about September. Audience overview, slightly skewed lower median household income. Again, I think a lot of that is due to the housing inventory in that given area. But this area does skew a little bit younger as well. Household income. All right, tenant overview. Again, just want to articulate where a lot of these visits come from. Target is the anchor by a significant margin. Close to 40% of the visit shares are there, and Target has seen some decreases in visits of recent. The gas stations kind of hovering around the same visits year over year, but between Target and those gas stations, that makes up approximately 60% of the visits. And then, there are some additional, key businesses in the area, such as fast food chains like Wendy's and Taco Bell and Mutual Ace Hardware, and some dealerships that can, result in some cause of those visits as well. North Skokie corridor, again, just interesting to look at the visitor journey prior and after. Crossroads Business District, Jewel, McDonald's in downtown Highland Park, and the rec center are some key areas that we're seeing people go either before or after visiting this business district. Daily visits, common across the board, slight increase in Friday and Saturday, but pretty consistent Sunday through Thursday. Hourly visits, as you can see here, this skews a little bit further into the day, seeing a dip at night, but generally consistent across the board. Again, when you have some anchors like gas stations and Jewel and Ace, as long as those places are operating their hours, these visitations will remain pretty consistent. Similar to what we kind of saw in Briergate due to Jewel being the anchor, median time is around 20 minutes for how long somebody stays in the district. This skews a little bit shorter due to the, 2 gas stations that are in this district. North Moraine. So North Moraine, I don't know if many people know, this is kind of the district bordering Highwood. So it's Temple Avenue and Waukegan Avenue. Those are kind of the 2 main roads in the North Moraine Business District. From a visit standpoint, slight decrease from last year, but looking from 2 years ago, a significant increase, and from 3 years ago, and a significant increase. So some interesting traction happening in this district. About 76,000 visitors and a frequency about 3 visits. Visitations skew a lot towards the summer months in this district, due to, again, to the seasonality of kind of the events and some of the businesses that are in the area. There's an ice cream shop. There's, some service-based businesses that thrive more in the summer in this district. Here's some anchor tenants, Napa Auto Parts, and Bernardi Auto Service. So these are two tenants that, across the board create the most visitations. I mean, they make up almost all of the visitations in the district. But it's good to know just kind of what we're seeing at a glance in this district. A lot of the priors and posts here are going to be areas in Highwood due to its proximity, but there are some Highland Park areas such as Target, McDonald's, and downtown Highland Park. Again, just due to the season, this is much more of a destination area given its proximity to downtown Highwood. So a lot more visits when, there's, more activity at restaurants and nightlife. So Fridays and Saturdays are very common. And Sundays had a pretty strong showing as well, more so than the other district. Also, similar to Ravinia, the visits skewed more so in the evening. So due to some, restaurants in the area and in close proximity, there's more visitations in the nighttime, particularly, that 5 to 8 o'clock time frame. From a visitor duration standpoint, this marks pretty similar to what we saw in the Central Business District, around 30 minutes. And that is the end of the report. Thank you so much for watching. Included in the caption below will be instructions on how you can request a customized report. And I recommend looking at a customized report. It can answer a lot of questions. When are your business's best operating hours? What days of the week should I be open? Where are my visitors coming from by zip code? Those are some key questions. Again, I'll include some more information in the description. But again, email those requests, customized reports to businessdevelopment@cityhbl.com. Thank you so much. Again, my name's Corey Cohn, I'm Business Development Specialist. And if you need any assistance with the city, make sure to contact us. We're here to support you. Have a good one and enjoy your day.